Hi guys, Harbs Narbs here. This video is going to be focusing on a mix of data-mined content and lore from a variety of sources. So if you don't want spoilers, then please don't watch the video, as I'll be looking at some of the game's files, although not too many. If you'd like to check out the Patreon, which will help the channel, or if you'd like to join the Discord, then both links are in the description below. Okay, let's go. This video largely came about by accident and should serve as a great encouragement for anyone considering joining the Discord. I had a very long conversation with three members called Vamarthi, the Scouse Wizard, and Priest, where over several hours throughout the day we shared ideas and discussed the potential plot of the game, so I'd like to credit them for that discussion, which led to much of the content for this video. So, first let's talk about the Dead 3 Clerics. I found this line when I was looking in the game files. In a vision, we learned of the only way to remove the parasite. Find the Clerics of the Dead 3 and destroy the magic enchanting our parasites. Another line then says this. We were told through a vision that the only way to remove our parasite was to find and destroy the dark magic the Clerics of the Dead 3 are using to enchant the tadpoles. We know so far that the tadpoles have been altered by shadow magic. We can see this alteration in the game itself when we speak to the hag in the woods, as well as Halsin's own notes on his studies regarding the deceased drow, where he writes the word altered. So the Dead 3 have potentially infused the tadpole with shadow magic, and it is highly likely that clerics like Priestess Gut are drawing power from the Dead 3, hence the symbolism. We can also see from Karlach's voice files that she believes the Absolute has covered Shah in their symbol, meaning that if the Dead 3 are behind the Absolute, then potentially they have some power over Shah.
The Dark Lady, befouled by the Absolute's mark. Heresy.
If we consider what this deceased Mind Flayer said, then maybe the Absolute is indeed a group of Mind Flayers, and that's how it has got all the goblins to turn away from Maglubuet.
Fractured images fill your mind. Curved drow blades, crude goblin torches, gnoll teeth, dripping blood. You see other mind flayers arranged in a serene circle. Absolute unity. Absolute power.
In fact, this one goblin says something very important that we need to keep in mind.
Cause I'm loyal to Maglubuet. Cause I ain't having my head turned by some upstart god. Yeah, my own tribe's fallen for this shite, traitorous bastards.
So the Absolute is influencing drow, gnolls and goblins and turning their heads. Further evidence that the Absolute is some kind of construct created by the Dead 3 and their clerics is a piece of data-mined content put on Reddit by user PGen. If the person you dream of at night is male, tag Daisy Male, your main character says, they're too powerful, we have to stop the Absolute and his true souls. If the person you dream of at night is female, tag Daisy Female, your main character says, they're too powerful, we have to stop the Absolute and her true souls. I think that this furthers the idea that the Absolute is not a being of consistency, and it is instead created as a tool to influence individual people, capable of changing depending on who you are. It is my belief that the Dead 3 have a deal with the Mind Flayers to facilitate this plan, rather than the Dead 3 taking control of an Elder Brain. I think this because of when the Dead Mind Flayer spoke about the many Nautiloids coming through a void in the sky. It implies that there is a bigger Illithid presence waiting just beyond realm space, certainly bigger than the power of the Dead 3, who in Descent into Avernus are described as quasi-divine beings. Clearly these Illithids are very advanced if they have technology that can instantly transform people into Mind Flayers, but how can the Illithids, who are largely made up of fractured enclaves of Mind Flayers littered throughout the Underdark, muster a force to invade Toril? This brings me on to my next point, Caius. Caius is described as follows in the 3.5 edition supplement Elder Evils. The worm that walks is a shifting mass of maggots and worms, filled with the psychic imprint of a demigod named Caius. Slain in another age, the worm that walks yearns to return and seize the world in its wriggling grasp, ushering in the world's last age. There seems to be no mention of Caius in the game files, so this segment will be purely lore-based. Caius was originally a necromancer that was banished by his people, and instead of languishing in exile, he formed a cult that believed in the Age of Worms. He ruled this cult from an island called Wormcrawl, where the members of his cult discovered strange metal plates with Caius's prophecies written upon them, strengthening their belief in him. Eventually, Caius sacrificed all of his followers and ascended into something else, though it is not quite clear what he is other than that he has incredible power. However, he is trapped in the ruins on Wormcrawl Island, where he tries to find ways to escape so that he can bring about the prophesied Age of Worms, which is when all undead will rise up and destroy the world. Okay, so how is all this relevant to Baldur's Gate 3? In Dragon Magazine 403, the worm that walks, or Caius, is described as a sentient tear in reality, where one can see a swarming mass of maggots and worms that goes on forever. Nihal, a star from the Far Realm, is described as a brother to the worm, or rather they are aspects of the same entity as seen from different ends of time. Nihal is an elder evil, and although originally a sentient star from the Far Realm, it now resides in realm space and constantly shifts across the sky, earning its nickname on Toril as the Serpent Star. That's according to the 4th edition Monster Manual. Now, according to Bruce R. Cordell's novel City of Torment, Nihal and other sentient elder evil stars from the Far Realm serve an aboleth called the Eldest, who is described in Plague of Spells as being old before even Abir Toril was split asunder. Now, out of all the planes in existence, the Eldest, a mind-boggling being that if studied can turn you insane, resides right here on Toril, not so far from where we start in Baldur's Gate 3. Yes, the Eldest resides in a city called Zifu, which hovers above the Sea of Fallen Stars. Now, originally Zifu settled deep beneath what is now the Sea of Fallen Stars and actually remained upon Abir when the planet was split. But during the Spell Plague, it was transported to Faerun. Zifu is described in the Forgotten Realms campaign setting 2008 as an obelisk that in 1389 DR appeared above the Sea of Fallen Stars near Cormyr. However, it constantly changes position in the sky and sea captains never want to approach it. The people of Cormyr know little about it, but the following is said in the campaign setting. Zifu is a glyph-scribed obelisk wrapped in an eternal storm that soars over the surface of the world. Tentacles slither and crawl in cold rookeries, encrusting the vast object's sheer sides. A writhing frieze carved on the age-worn exterior depicts thousands of interconnected images. The inscriptions constantly shift and change, as if invisible artists swarm across the stone face, inscribing atrocities to the beat of a mad drummer. The full meaning of the evolving inscription invokes concepts too ghastly for mortal minds to comprehend and remain sane. What is interesting about Zifu is that it contains the abolethic sovereignty. They are believed to be far more ancient than the aboleths that already reside on Toril. You could say that they are the original aboleths, being more ancient than the world itself. It is said that the aboleths already dwelling in Toril's Underdark stay away from the aboleths in Zifu, fearing them. Now, according to Bruce R. Cordell's novel Key of Stars, the main goal of the abolethic sovereignty is to open a portal into the Far Realm. So, what is the link between the Dead 3 and the Worm that Walks, which seems might be linked to a host of other things? Well, in the same 3.5 Elder Evils supplement, we can see the following. An obscure cadre of ex-clerics banded together to find some way to restore their fallen gods to power. Consisting of Bane, Baal and Merkel's priests, they have an uneasy alliance, setting aside their differences to work toward their common goal. Though treachery is never far from their minds, having acquired a few fair manuscripts, they have come to believe the Worm that Walks contains a divine spark that, if harnessed, could restore life to their fallen gods. Now, they all return to divinity during the Second Sundering, but as I said at the start, they are only quasi-divine beings. Remember the Dead 3 symbolism prior to this scene, and the fact that all the Dead 3 cultists were still working together in descent into Avernus. It is in this scene here where I think this invasion of Nautiloids has taken place, the one which the Dead Mind Flayer speaks about. But how can this portal, which allows the Nautiloids to pour in, be opened? Well, let's take a look at an adventure called Rakhma. But first, what is a Rakhma? When the Giths split, they went into two different factions, the Githyanki and the Githzerai. However, there was a third called the Shasal-Ku, which was a group dedicated to the reunification of the Gith. They had Githzerai and Githyanki, who often went undercover in both of the home planes of the two splintered groups, Tunarath upon the astral plane and the plane of Limbo. Although the Shasal-Ku are primarily involved with reuniting the Gith race, they still of course harbour a bitter hate of the Illithids, and when the Shasal-Ku go out hunting Illithids, their hunting party is called a Rakhma. This adventure focuses on something called the Gith Capacitator, which is an artifact that would allow the Illithids to wipe psionics from the Gith. If you don't know, all Gith have basic psionics. It's a reason why Lae'zel has a version of Mage Hand. As a species, the Gith developed psionics when they served their Mind Flayer masters, and it gives them somewhat of an advantage when fighting Illithids compared to other races. The Gith Capacitator would allow the Mind Flayers to attempt to regain control of their former slave race. However, to activate it, they must expose the Capacitator to the unfathomable energies of the Far Realm. To do this, the Mind Flayers in the adventure will have to travel through a nearby portal to the plane of Pandemonium, where they are rumoured to have located a direct path to the Far Realm. So, we know from the Dead Mind Flayer that there is a vision of Nautiloids pouring through a hole in the sky. But how is this hole opened, and where are all these Nautiloids coming from? We can see from the Abolithic Sovereignty that they also want to open a portal to the Far Realm, as did the Mind Flayers in Rakhma. But how will this portal be formed? In the Rakhma adventure, this portal can be found in the Underdark. We can read the following. After the tuning fork was struck, the Rakhma followed it for a day along many winding stone tunnels deep into the Underdark. After a long rest, they resumed their journey until they arrived here, at the opening to a massive cavern housing a great fungal forest. The cavern is roughly circular and a half-mile in diameter with a dozen tunnels leading out of it. About 100 feet ahead, amidst a tall stand of Zirkwood mushrooms, is an elaborate glowing portal, 50 foot tall and half as wide at its base. Eventually, once the players have passed into Pandemonium, they come across the portal to the Far Realm in a strange cathedral. This cathedral must have been something to behold at one point in time, but now the porous stone and winds of Pandemonium have brought it to its current decrepit state. At the far end of the cathedral is a shining adamantine archway, alight with runes of power. The gate to the Far Realm is open. Due to some strange influence of the Far Realm, the winds of Pandemonium do not touch this place at the moment. Now, let's consider the likelihood of something reaching the Far Realm, or the likelihood of the Far Realm interacting with the material plane. Usually, it is pretty unlikely. However, recently in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, we've seen the following. This chart for the Sorcerer origin at number 4 signifies some link to Baldur's Gate 3 when it says the following. You were implanted with a Mind Flayer tadpole, but the Ceramorphosis never completed, and now its psionic power is yours. When you use it, your flesh shines with a strange mucus. Well, it's a given that we knew Wizards of the Coast would have been consulting with Larian on the story of Baldur's Gate 3, but there are things in the book that make me believe that Wizards want to bring the Far Realm into the Prime Material plane in a big way, and what better way to demonstrate that than in a popular AAA game. We can also see this image captioned a Far Realm incursion with Mind Flayer Nautiloids, and also a full table with different Far Realm effects for the Dungeon Master to choose from. However, the Far Realm has been creeping into 5th edition for a long time. The adventure I spoke about just before, Rakhma, is actually made to go with Mordenkainen's Tomb of Foes, one of 5th edition's most popular supplements. Okay, thanks for watching guys, there were a lot of crazy theories and lore there, but I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, then please do give me a like and subscribe. And if you want, you can check out the Discord, the link's in the description below, as well as a link to my Patreon page. Okay, see you next time. Bye!